and this was so important to me as I was struggling with any kind of little technical detail. Her quote is, "CEOs do not DIY."
Today, we're digging into a topic that I know a lot of you are thinking about, and I think that this is really going to help a lot of people kind of reimagine and rethink what they're doing in terms of teaching. I'm Jason Heath. This is Contrabass Conversations, and we're talking today with Bill Rinehart and Jaime Slutzky. And Bill, who, by the way, his son, he's a pianist, but his son is a bass player and is starting at Rice University this fall with Paul Ellison, so that's super cool. But Bill has, for the last 13 years, been teaching jazz piano online, and the website is Jazz Piano Online. That's a good URL, by the way. And he has been working recently with Jaime Slutzky, who has an incubator program and a very cool podcast called Expand Online. And she has been working with people, all kinds of people, but especially artists, to develop courses and just different ways of interacting and teaching online. And I have been thinking about these topics for years. I have been not convinced that the one-on-one lesson is the ideal format for learning. And I remember talking to David Cutler of The Savvy Musician, who I had on the podcast like 11 years ago or something. But David talks a lot about it, and I've been chatting about this with Hugh Sung and many other people about different models than what we're used to with private lessons or with just teaching instruments or teaching music in general. So this is a deep dive for sure into one of my favorite subjects. And it's just really cool for me to hear from Bill, his experiences building a presence online, talking to Jaime here about how to get started when you haven't been doing things for 13 years like Bill has or like I have. And I get a chance to spout off on some of my favorite topics. So I really hope you enjoy this conversation. I'm just so happy that Bill reached out to me, and I know that this is going to help a lot of folks. And one more thing before we get started. International Online Bass Summit is coming up. I'm only going to chat about this for a few more episodes because it's coming up June 24th through the 28th. What a lineup. I don't even know where to start in terms of this. This started off as a thought between Barry Green and me about just trying to replace the Ohio State Bass Camp that we were going to do this summer. So that maybe would have been 20 people, and it's morphed into hundreds of people from across the globe, 5 full days of content. Learn more at basssummit.org. And I want to talk about one of the sponsors for this event and how cool that people in the wacky times that we're in right now are sponsoring bass events. So thank you to Nick Lloyd of Nick Lloyd Basses, nicklloydbasses.com, who I've had on the podcast before. I've gotten a chance to spend time with. If you've ever met Nick, you'll remember him. He's a great guy. He's a big personality. He built this beautiful 5-string bass for Adam Ben Ezra. So if you've seen any of Adam Ben Ezra's playing, you're seeing a Nick Lloyd bass. His basses are outstanding. And just an example of what a great guy Nick is. So at the 2018 European Bass Congress, Bass Europe in Lucca, Italy, it was, let's say 100 degrees Fahrenheit during the day, probably average. Okay. So, and no AC. We're in a medieval town, no AC, and we're just dying in there. Everybody is melting. I mean, I was talking to people who had to run back to their room and take 3 showers a day. So what does Nick do? He buys up every fan he can find in that region of Italy, brings back, I don't even know what he spent on fans, but he just said, we need fans. I'm going to get fans. And he just took charge and set up these fans everywhere. And he made my life a lot better. He made everybody's life at that event a lot better. And I just encourage you to support him. Check out his instruments. If you're looking for a bass, they're beautiful. He's got a video that he put out recently about how to clean your fingerboard and strings, which is very cool. It's on our YouTube channel. And yeah, can't say enough good things about Nick. So thank you, Nick, and thank you for sponsoring the summit. And I hope to see you at the summit. And without further ado, let's dive into this conversation with Bill and Jaime about online education. Maybe we could start off just if you want to each kind of introduce yourselves and what you do. And I will obviously link up to both of your sites and everything and let people know. And I'll do an intro, but maybe just Jaime or Bill, whoever wants to start first, just tell us a little bit about what you do.
Sure, I'll go first, and then I'll segue into Jamie. So I am a jazz piano player, and I grew up in Boston and had a career in Boston up until about 2005. And at that point, my wife got a job and said, "We're moving to North Carolina," and I said, "Okay." And I find myself down here in North Carolina with no students and no gigs, and I'm like, "What am I going to do?" And someone just literally out of the blue said, "Oh, I saw this guy teaching guitar online." And, it seems to us today, oh, well, yeah, everyone teaches guitar online. But then in 2007, 2006, it seemed so strange and so weird. It's like, wow, how are they doing this? What are they doing? So one thing led to another. I just kind of went with it. I started building a site, did it all by hand. And August 2007, we were going on a long weekend trip, and I was going to plan to launch the site the following week. And somehow the site went up beforehand, and we're on vacation. I'm seeing all of these PayPal emails coming in. I'm like, I think the thing went live without me knowing. And people saw it, they signed up, they liked it. I took it all through the Flash age, the iPad age, into HTML5. And I don't know, I want to say 3 years ago or something, realized I needed to get out of doing this by myself. And it's just when the e-learning platforms kind of came to the fore, and I chose Thinkific, which is the site that runs my site now. Needed to do some editing on that, and that's what led me to Jamie, who had done some work for me in just modifying the site just to make it fit what I was doing. And yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I've been teaching people all over the world. I've got basically a library of video lessons that people access via subscription. And then we augment that with live webcam lessons. And it's been great. And, I just wanted to get the word out. This is why I contacted you. And, in this situation where, basically musicians they have nothing going on. And just wanted to, tell people that having some content online, can be a real help. It can be a nice thing to have to balance out your sort of income streams.
I'm so excited to talk about this subject too with both of you, because this is something I've been thinking about for 13 years probably, and doing something that you do, and then I imagine a lot of other people that work with Jamie do, that scales, right? Because I'm seeing all these musicians jump on board, and they're basically trying to replicate what they've been doing in person. But right. I think there are other ways that actually enrich the experience, and I mean it's a beautiful thing. So I'm really excited. I've been looking through the site, and I love nerding out on all the details of how it all happens. But I'm really excited to dig into this too. So bravo for being like an OG online piano teacher. 2007 in internet terms is like right. that's a good stretch. That's when I started the podcast actually. So
really?
We're both in the same OG club, but that's really cool.
Yeah. And in 2007, I was a new mom. I mean, let's just go back there. My older daughter was born in 2006. My younger daughter was born in 2009. I was working in corporate at the time with both of them. And I knew, having a degree in computer science, having a passion for helping individuals, that I wasn't going to stay in corporate forever. And so I transitioned out of corporate when my younger daughter was 2 into freelance website development. And I went a bunch of different directions, found Thinkific, about 4 years ago in 2016. So I had spent about 5 years just kind of doing all sorts of different things, not to mention getting a certification as a personal trainer, which is another story altogether. But my true love is technology, and making technology work for whomever wants to use it. My biggest thing is that it is always workable. It's a matter of, can you wrap your head around what you want to create so that we can make the tech work to create it? And what I loved about Thinkific and about the e-learning platforms and just online teaching and everything else is that there's so many ways to be successful. And I love to make the platforms ebb and flow to whatever it is that you might be doing. Bill was one of my clients a few years ago, and we recently got back in contact because he had a few new tweaks. And I'm like, yay, I get to go back into Bill's site and tweak things. And that was something that was really important to me, was that you can use whatever software you want and you can push it to its limits. I primarily work with artists, all kinds of artists, whether they're musicians or visual artists. In theater, like I've got a good friend who teaches acting classes online, but the principle is teaching art online is not the same as teaching art in person. And it doesn't matter what modality it is. I've got a whole lot of tricks up my sleeve at this point where I'm just kind of really honing in on this whole expand online, because I don't work with brand new teachers. I don't work with brand new artists. I work with people who are ready to take their artistry online and do more and reach more people, make more income. You just have that, why not hand yourself a silver platter?
I've thought for so many years, Bill, you can relate, Jaime, you can relate too, I'm sure, of like how many times I've delivered the same dang lesson to just an endless stream of students. I remember we go back 15 years, I was teaching up in Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin, Whitewater, and I would have these 11-hour teaching days, and I was just a robot. I was like saying, and I thought, wouldn't it be great to package this delivery the best way possible and have that experience? And then whether it's in person or like a webcam session, you're kind of having a consultation after you've had that shared learning. And I'm just such a fan of learning in that way, because you're never going to remove the one-on-one, the value of one-on-one. I don't think, whether it's in person or over video conferencing or whatever, but to have a sequence that people can go through, a step-by-step sequence of whatever, we're talking music here, but I just think that's such an incredibly valuable thing for the student, certainly for the teacher, because it's something that can scale and monetize. So I've been thinking about this for years. Yeah, I'd love your thoughts.
Yeah. So, for instance, I like to take the summer off because it just, as any teacher knows, it's just like, I just need a break. And so what I'm doing with the site is I've got a bunch of students who are just learning how to play voicings. And like you were saying, you feel like you're a robot. You're just doing the same thing over again. What I'm doing is I'm transitioning them for the summer to my online course and dripping out content every week. And the beauty of this is that they're paying me to access the content. Although I have the time off, there's no hands-on there at all. I'm going to be off for the month, but yet they're still getting the lessons. And this is one of the things that's so great for musicians is that, you can, it's just another stream. It's another income stream that really, especially now where all of the other streams have disappeared. It's just nice to have. And like you say this over and over again. I don't know how many times I've talked about learning, trying to teach kids how to play voicings. It's there. I've recorded it. It's done. And I continue to, earn money off of those videos that I recorded way back when.
Absolutely. That's something that's so valuable about the online training model and the online teaching is that you can have those canned, never going to go out of style courses that you can use in conjunction with what you were saying, Jason, about the live and the interactive. And one of the things that I know that is different in the art creation, whether it's music or whatever, is that we need to have a feedback loop with our students. You can't teach in a vacuum. You can't say here, 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 here. You're going to be an excellent play whatever instrument. There has to be an engagement in some way, shape, or form between teacher and student. And that's something that there are a lot of tools. There are ways to do it that you don't even have to do it in real time. You can have people submit their videos to you, and you can record a video response. So you can say, I record my video responses every Tuesday. Submit your stuff by Friday at 5 p.m. and you'll get your response on Tuesday by 5 p.m. You can do that, and you don't even have to have that actual intimate conversation, but they feel that it's intimate because you are giving them one-on-one attention, even if it's not real-time one-on-one connection. There are so many ways of creating and fostering that teacher-student relationship through the screen. And whether, again, you want to take a month off to be able to just decompress, or you realize that you're learning and that you want to be live and interactive with your students. There are so many ways of going about it.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, Jaime. The thing is people always say to me, well, why are people paying you? I can basically learn anything I want on YouTube. You have to be providing a premium service for people to pay money. And that personal interaction is really what people are paying for. So they're getting the recorded content, but they're getting your feedback on the assignments, that sort of thing. And that people will pay for that. People will, when they realize that they are getting a return on what they're paying for, they will pay for that.
Yeah, having the guide take you through, because you're right. We're living in this interesting era where, yes, I can learn how to do all these home repairs on YouTube and cook anything, but it's so much. And is it quality? What's the order in which I should go? Me and my particular set of skills. I mean, that's where that premium service and so it's a really interesting. And I think a lot of people kind of get that, but it's also so terrifying for people who haven't done any of this, especially people who have skill, have done a lot of kind of traditional one-on-one or small group, in-person teaching. They're like bewildered, and they hear like Thinkific or Teachable. What are these things? And how do I even get going? And I mean, that's where having someone guide you through that is just so valuable.
Yeah. And this is really key with what Jaime's offering is, so I did this from the very beginning. I was writing HTML code. I had no idea what I was doing. I wanted to be focusing purely on the content, the music, how to sequence it, how to really teach the stuff. And I can't stress highly enough, if any of your listeners are thinking about doing this, or even you, don't get caught in the weeds of the tech. This isn't in the right place. I need that over here, or I want this here. Have someone do that for you so that you can focus on the content. It makes a huge difference. I cannot tell you how much time, if I had a tenth of the time that I spent trying to figure out how to make something blue versus white, I could learn the bass.
That's why I love coming into client sites. I love coming into their projects, because the tech is outsourceable. What is not outsourceable is your genius. I love to say that you need to spend more time in your zone of genius. And I define the zone of genius as where your skill set and your passion collide. And think of it as an expansive space. The more time you spend in your zone of genius, the more you can create, the more impact you can create, the more products you can create, the more profit you can create, the more opportunities you can create when you spend your time in your zone of genius. And anything that doesn't fall in your zone of genius, find a way to keep that off your plate, whether it's bringing someone in to guide you through the process of going from teaching in person to teaching online, or it's bringing someone in who can manage your students so that you don't have to do any of the admin work, or if it's someone to bring in and customize and completely build out a site all by themselves so that you don't have to worry about that. Spend your time where you are most valuable.
Yes, and I will echo both of you on that. As somebody who heard advice that you were both giving and did not heed it for years, and spent how many hours trying to turn something blue or how to like make a logo. A few years ago, it was the worst time financially for me to do this. It was when I didn't get a job I thought I was going to get, and we moved to a more expensive place. And so I was like, but I said, you know what? So I brought somebody on to work with me on a regular basis monthly and started working with graphic designers, and that all paid for itself almost immediately, and so I know it's tough and it's scary, for people to see that, but that zone of genius thing is so true, and you can your time is so much more valuable than you might think, and we all have this limited amount of time, and so getting doing what you do and getting better at what you do and learning how to present what you do most effectively, and that's something I would love both of you, having done this for a while, like presenting online, while it shares a lot in common with like a one-on-one lesson or whatever, it's its own thing too, right? So any tips, or it could be real general, because we could talk about this for hours, but like even like mindset tips or like workflow tips, or how you prepare to deliver stuff that is going to be accessed for a while. And any thoughts from either of you?
Oh, so many thoughts. My biggest tip is know what your student wants to accomplish. Okay. Before you start creating a curriculum, don't think, oh, I'm creating a beginner course, or I'm creating an intermediate course or whatever. What is the specific goal they have? They want to play the instrument at their kid's wedding. They want to play the instrument at their kid's birthday party. They want to play, why are they coming to this? And then you can back into their goal with, okay, where do they need to be in order for me to take them to that goal? And it may be that they are, that you realize, okay, they have to be able to read sheet music and they have to have the instrument, and that's it. Or it may be that there's more involved with it. And so if you can bookend your course with the minimum and the goal, you are going to be so much better off in actually creating the content and stepping them through. I also don't think that you have to create this linearly. You don't have to start at the beginning. You can start at any point in time. Maybe there is a specific lesson that you want to teach, and you're not sure if that's lesson 2, lesson 8, or lesson 18. You just know that that's a lesson that needs to be in this course. Start with that one, get that one done, and then build your course out. What needs to come before this? What needs to come after this? And that's kind of how I like to help my clients construct their courses.
That's a really good point. And the other thing is, so when I was doing my site, my idea was I wanted it to be everything. I wanted them to be learning improv and chords and arranging and harmony and all that sort of stuff. And I think if I was doing it differently now, I would focus on one thing. Just like you say, okay, here's your basic chords, here's how you voice them, this is how you play them in tunes, that kind of thing. Just make it really focused. Because when I was starting it, I think my idea was more of a kind of a library of courses that people wanted to, that they could access. And I think people don't want that. I think people want something very targeted and specific, like you are going to do this, you are going to be able to learn this from this class, from this course. So yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people get overwhelmed of like, okay, well, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? I need to start from the beginning and go to the most advanced. No, just pick something, really narrow it down and start a course that way and let it grow from there and see how, what kind of response you get from that. One other thing I wanted to mention, that part of setting up a site is, it's so difficult to find people to help you. I'm sure you've experienced this, Jason, is that, there's all of these websites out there with freelancers and you're like, you'll pick someone. I've had so many bad experiences and so, many people didn't know what they're doing. I mean, I can't even tell you. If you can find someone who really knows what they're doing and can be helpful and you can communicate with them, that is priceless. And I just want to say that to Jaime. I mean, it's always been so easy I'm like, okay, I need to do this. And almost before I'm done saying it, it's done. I was last thing I asked her to do, I was like, there it is. Look, oh, wow, it just appeared. So the combination of, in my case, Thinkific, which is the platform that I use, but also having Jaime as sort of my backup, is incredibly powerful. And I would recommend it, especially for musicians, as a site that really, I really feel like I can, do anything I want. The way the material is presented and how the content is, looks on the page looks really nice. I know there's other ones, there's like Teachable and other sites, but I think Thinkific and Jaime are a very profound combination.
Well, that finding the right person is just so critical. And it's funny, like in this internet age, and even I do all these things online, but everybody I've found to help me has always been word of mouth from somebody I know, and so I have the Trevor who helps me with the podcast on this. I've recommended him to 4 or 5 other organizations who are looking for similar things, and finding that key person. Yeah, I've had quite mixed results just hopping on Fiverr or Upwork or whatever. Not that there are great people out there on that, but when I've needed help with X, Y, or Z, I talk to people that are in the space, and I get the recommendations. So that says a lot. I'd love to know more about just Thinkific in general, because I've done a little bit on Teachable, not with my own course per se, but I know a little bit about that platform. But what's the setup for Thinkific that you find good for musicians? Because I know there are a lot of platforms out there, and that's another one of those overwhelm things when people start to think about this. It's like, well, where do I even start? So,
right. Yeah, Jaime, I think, she knows it better than I do. So, I mean, I just sort of plug everything in there. It looks beautiful.
Yeah. One of the reasons why I gravitated towards Thinkific was because they have so much ease of use. It's actually pretty easy once you kind of get over okay, I'm going to do this. You go into the course creation tool and you start naming things, and they've got tooltips that help you out. And they have so many types of content that you can put in there. You can put text content, you can put downloadables, you can put video, you can put audio files, you can put quizzes, you can put surveys, you can put a lot of different things right inside your course. And that just makes it really easy to start to create and to drop things in there. The platform's been around for long enough that it works. It just works, and they are very active with their audiences and their user base to be able to continually improve. They keep adding new functionality, and it's an ongoing living product. And that's one of the things that you definitely want to find when you're working with a tool, is that you have a community of people who are using it, and that the developers and the team are involved in the day-to-day communication with the users. I also really like Thinkific because because they have good aesthetics. There's nothing worse than using a tool that is easy to use and getting all your stuff on there, and then you look at the front end of it and you're like, I don't want to send anyone here. This is ugly, or this doesn't make user sense. So they take a lot of consideration into the user experience. Just going back to like one of their modules, the video module, they house all your videos for you. So you don't have to pay for another video service. That is huge. A lot of the tools do that as well, but I love the way that they've done it. They recently, probably in the past 6 months, have expanded the capability of their video module so that it can also have text included, and so that it can also have downloads included. If you had wanted to have video with text and downloads before, you could do it with their text module. But now you can do it with their video module. And the advantage to that is that you actually can get statistics and data about how far people are watching those videos. Are people stopping? That's something that is really important to think about as you're building out your online course is, do I create 5-minute videos? Do I create 25-minute videos? Obviously, you can get a lot more information into a 25-minute video, but if the attention span of your student is 8 minutes. You're better off with 5-minute videos because they're going to get through every single video lesson. So there's just a lot of those kinds of things that are built into the platforms. I am very much tool agnostic. If you have played with a tool and you're happy with it, stick with it. Don't change just because we're talking about Thinkific today. Don't change because you're like, oh, well, my tool doesn't do this. Maybe your tool has something that makes sense for you. I happened to fall into the Thinkific camp, find out that they're based in Vancouver, BC, which is my hometown, and got to meet a whole bunch of people at their offices. So I've been to their offices three or four times at this point. And so that was something that just gave me that extra boost of connection. But that's not to say that there's not other really good solutions out there. I don't want to make it sound like there's only one. There are lots of solutions out there, but look at what's important. Look at what you want to accomplish and make sure that whatever tool you are picking covers about 80% of what you want to do. If it's that last 20%, that's your nice to have, you can let that go, but don't make a decision on the nice to have. Make a decision on the must have.
Yeah, I mean, like for instance, I'm just looking at my site right now. I mean, I sequence my lessons using some text, mostly video. The quizzes are really critical. I think that is what sort of separates the premium from, just the YouTube videos. Introducing a concept, having a quick quiz on it, people get a grade. You can have answers to the quizzes, whether they got them wrong or not. You can make the quiz they have to get a certain grade before they can continue on. There's a downloadable feature. It's really, everyone complains about online education being inferior to in-person education, but I can tell you that I am a way better teacher online than I am in person because I'm forced to think about how do I present this? How am I sequencing it? How am I, what am I asking my students to learn? I'm much more thoughtful about the online stuff and I don't know, Jason, are you primarily a classical player or a jazz player?
I'm primarily a classical player, but as I was watching some of the videos that you have on YouTube, I mean, you're demonstrating the ways in which video is just like incredibly useful because you got the overhead camera view, you're seeing the music, you're seeing the voicings. That's right. Like to me, a perfect example of using the technology. But yes, to answer your question, classical is my bag mostly.
What I was just going to say is, as a jazz player, I think it's different in the classical world. As a jazz player, nobody has any training in teaching. No one has any interest in teaching. No one really knows what they're doing. And that was one of the reasons really I wanted to do the site is I wanted to, bring some coherency to this, like I'm actually thinking about what I'm trying to present and, how I order it and that sort of thing, as opposed to someone's, saying, oh, well, my gig's at 7. Okay. Why don't we do this kind of a thing? So, so it's it really I found it really elevated my teaching because I was just paying way more attention to it.
What I would, it's a great. There's so many things you can do if you start to think a little bit more creatively about the tools you have at hand. Hugh Sung, a pianist, classical pianist that I know that teaches he's been doing videos about teaching online. He works with Artist Works and he uses all these different camera angles. And he and I have chatted for years about the benefits of, we'll just call it asynchronous teaching. We can use whatever label. Let me throw.
I love Hugh. I know Hugh.
Oh, do you really? Yeah. I can't. I think the world of Hugh. I've got a chance to spend some time with him in person, and just really lovely person and great spirit and energy.
He was at NAMM this past year, and I got to spend some time with him. I think no, maybe we both work for Yamaha also. So I think now that I think of it, was a Yamaha event.
Next time, Bill, I was at NAMM. We missed each other. We all wear many hats. I work for Eastman Music Company. It is another role I do. So next time NAMM happens, which is hopefully in January, and we're both there, let's meet up. Let's meet up in person. Who knows exactly?
Yeah, I mean, I wonder. Thinkific should have a site at NAMM.
Yeah.
Actually, Jaime, you should have a site at NAMM. Really?
We'll talk about it.
a lot more people should be, connecting with musicians at NAMM.
Have you ever seen, now that I think about it, have you ever seen any of these online education sites?
Certainly I've seen music technology in different forms, but I've never seen an online learning platform. But it's obviously something that all musicians are thinking a lot more about. One thing, and this is an impossible to answer question, so apologies in advance, but it's something people ask me all of the time, is like, okay, now I want to start teaching online, but I have no followers. How do I build an audience? And my easy answer is, well, I started back in 2005 blogging, and I've been doing it for thousands of posts and nearing 1,000 podcasts. So do it, and 15 years later, we'll talk. So that's it. But like someone here in 2020, pandemic, land, trying to figure out what to do. And I know, it's, again, apologies, it's an impossible question, but like, what, in terms of building that audience that you eventually hope to bring onto the course that you're building, like any thoughts on the topic from a couple of veterans?
Yeah, so a couple of ways. I mean, you can spend, I'm sure you've experienced this too, you can spend all of your time promoting yourself. I mean, you literally could spend your entire life in promotion. I can't stand it, honestly. I decided, I think people will see, if you're really honest about what you're trying to do and you're really trying to do a good job, I think people will realize that. It's just a matter of, you got to be on social media. You got to do a little advertising. One thing that I've really found success with is there's this one piano-focused site that has a really active forum, and I've just been active answering questions on the forum, doing a little bit of advertising on there. That has been what I've spent most of my time on the last few years. The other thing is as you get the email subscribers for your free content, having free content out there, the email marketing is very powerful. People really respond to that. So I think in my case, Jaime can talk more about this. In my case, finding a website that, really speaks to your audience, and then also nurturing the email list has been what I've done. And that's what I've had success with. I mean, I can't spend time and money on Google and all that stuff. It's just too complicated.
Well, I'd love to hear Jaime's thoughts too, but I got to echo that 100%. And I'm another one of those people where that was a message that I heard that fell on deaf ears. I didn't start my email list, I think, until 2016. And wow. I'd been just like, it's like sand through my fingers in terms of, and that's become by far the most powerful way to reach people,
Absolutely.
Like colossally more than anything I do, which is the advice I heard forever. And I was it was another one of those things that just seemed a little too complicated for my bass player brain, I guess. But yeah, any thoughts on that, Jaime?
So many thoughts. I mean, you're asking me all of my favorite questions.
Okay, good.
But, I think that, to Bill's point, that you don't have to be everywhere. Bill found one platform where he could be seen as an expert. He could show his authenticity, his authority. He could show all of those things by answering questions that people come to. I know other musicians who use Quora, or they'll use, just a number of different places where people ask questions. They just go in and they answer the questions. I also know that there are people who are interested in growing a following on YouTube. You go on YouTube, you start putting your videos out, you share them with your small friends and family network. And as soon as you get a comment on there, you go and you respond to the comment and you thank the person. You ask them, you make that one-on-one connection. Or if you're doing something on Instagram, keep your stories up and present and lively. I have a story I have to create because I'm at 23 hours right now. And so my story is going to drop off. So I try and keep my story present. And one of the things that is so exceptional with artists and musicians and, whatever, is people love to see what you're doing. And they love to see what you're creating. They love to see the behind the scenes. And that works really, really well on Instagram. And one of the things that I think works particularly well is if you think about what are you going to be creating on Instagram and what story are you wanting to share? What story are you wanting to present? On Instagram, you can actually have up to 10 images in a single post. So what you do is you say, okay, here's my final product. It's maybe a 10-second video clip of you playing your instrument, playing a final piece. Then people can swipe over. They can see a clip of your sheet music where you've got scratch outs or whatever it is. And whatever the process is, you build that all into that final beautiful piece of music, but you're actually telling a story within that feed post. That's something that I think is really, really effective that artists are uniquely qualified to do. No one cares for me to show them, hey, this beautiful website, and here's all the code I wrote. They don't care about that, but they do care about how did you get to the point of creating this actual piece of work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's
journey.
Absolutely true. In the course of when I was developing my site, I briefly had a tangent where I was like, oh, I could be sort of like what Jaime does. I'm going to sort of build sites for people and do this sort of thing. And I was working with a fairly high-profile saxophone player, and I of course don't have a performance career really. This guy, he's known throughout the world and tours and everything, and I just saw how people were so rabid to know what he's doing, how he's doing it, where he is, any kind of content that he wants to produce. They will buy it. We were making ebooks. So I would say for your listeners who, do have performance careers and don't really have any sort of teaching going on, that people really are interested in, like Jaime said, the behind the scenes. What are they doing? How are they working on it? I love that comment that you made of like, oh, here's my final piece of music. And then here's where it started, where I have all the scratching up. People love that stuff and they will buy that.
And then they're going to want to learn from you because they're going to be like, okay, I get it. This person is not, a genius who can just play this on the fly and is perfect. They start to see your methods. They can say, oh, I can follow that journey. I can learn from you. That's the secret sauce, is getting people excited about not just your final work, but the work in progress, that they can then put themselves into your shoes and say, yes, I want to learn from this particular person. And you don't have to be in the top 1% in order to teach. There are 99% of people who are not in the top 1%. If you're in the top 50%, teach the bottom 49.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And just showing that process, showing the sausage being made. Just think, people listening, just think about how if you're like me, I've found a lot more cooking time on my hands, these days. So I get sucked down these hours long YouTube rabbit holes and I want to know how that's made. So I go down and I'll end up in some video that only doesn't have that many views, but I'm liking, I'm subscribing, I'm following along with them. And so people will, if you I just love people who show their work, demonstrating the journey. I think that's really good advice. Yeah, for sure.
I learned that from my math teachers, like way back in high school, they are always like, you only got 3 out of 5 because you didn't show your work. And so I eventually learned how to show my work, so that I would get 100% on everything. So, that perfectionist in you has been trained to show your work. Don't shy away from it.
Mm-hmm. Well, Bill, Jaime, I will link up to your sites. Folks should listen to Jaime's podcast, which I discovered and have really enjoyed. It's really cool to listen to what we're talking about, but directed toward artists. I think that's exceptionally cool. Anything else you want to get out there to folks?
I just wanted to. So Jaime is offering she's having a course that's going on right now where she's actually taking artists through the process to build a site. And the thing that's so exciting about this, which is really what made me come to you, Jason, was, like I was saying before, as an artist, do not get involved in the gears of making a site have someone do it for you. And that's what Jamie's offering. She's got this course where, you're the artist, you've got your, whatever it is that you're trying to teach. She'll take you through developing it into a full site ready to go to accept, paying subscribers. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about that, Jamie.
Well, thank you, Bill. My goal in life is to make tech work for people. And, and this is one of the ways that I can do it is I've been with a lot of course creators. I've been with a lot of people who want to expand their businesses online. And I really want to just keep helping you stay in your zone of genius. So I launched the course probably 6 or 7 times a year. It's an in-person it's an interactive program. Mm-hmm. So I launch it 6 or 7 times a year. And so there's always a waiting list. So it's always ready for you if that's something that you're interested in. But Jason, this has been so much fun talking with you and with Bill and this audience. So I really appreciate you bringing me on.
Oh, my pleasure.
These podcasts are great. It's everything that you can imagine about bass playing is here.
Well,
and everyone.
Well, it's fun. I never imagined I'd be doing this with my time, but I'll tell you, the dirty secret of this podcast is, for me, it's like a personal development thing, because I would want to chat with both of you right now anyway, even if there wasn't a podcast. And I say this probably too often on the podcast, but I could just lie and say I had a podcast and we'd chat, and I would get that, it's like an added bonus to put it out. So for me, I just love learning about meeting new people and chatting about topics that I think are cool. And I want to just echo before we wrap up here what both of you were saying in terms of the site and like having someone take you and build this sort of thing with you. You will those dollars will come in and then it is money well spent. And as somebody who's tried to do everything themselves and stuck there trying to wire up the merchant account to this and that and tear my hair out, and I just go like eat some ice cream and forget about it. You'll get on it. This stuff is, I think of what we've been talking about here as something that just has a lot of little steps. Probably most of it is doable by anybody who wants to take the time and do it, but it's doable, but it can feel sort of insurmountable, especially to people who don't have background in this sort of stuff. So like that, going back to what we've mentioned a few times, that zone of genius, I think it's just, it's money well spent. And I've learned that. I'm somebody who like said, I'll do it all myself, save a couple bucks. It's all good. I'll tell you folks, every aspect of what I've done jumped up a few levels, and I ended up earning more, saving time. It's everything that you hear people saying has been totally true for me in terms of just like getting help. I've talked to so many people in the online space, and I said, what do you wish you'd done earlier? And they're like, get help. And I am now one of those.
There's a quote that Jamie came up with, as far as I'm aware. And it was so important to me as I was struggling with any kind of little technical detail. Her quote is, CEOs do not DIY. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, how we have to consider ourselves. We're the CEO of our, little music business. And, we don't have time to be doing it ourselves.
Yeah.
We need to focus on the music.
Well, Bill, Jamie, pleasure. And thanks. Let's do it again sometime. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Jamie. Check out both of their websites and Jamie's podcast. That's all linked up in the show notes. And again, Jamie's podcast is called Expand Online. So since you're listening to this podcast, you can probably just click into the search bar on whatever app you're using and look up Expand Online, Jaime Slutzky. And I've been enjoying listening to that. I love finding new podcasts and learning from new people who are new to me, at least, like Bill and Jamie. And I really dig having these conversations, and I hope they're helpful. I know a lot of people are thinking about online teaching and different models, and I really believe in the online course model. I think it's super powerful what they're talking about. the asynchronous teaching, we can call it, model, I think is just holds a ton of promise. I think it's not even promise, it's working now. And I don't really teach that much these days myself. Some people have the impression that I teach a lot of people. I have. I've worn many hats as a teacher, but I teach very little now these days. But I do think it's really interesting to see what people are doing. And I love to be able to try to help in that process by profiling people like Jamie and Bill and Hugh Sung and other people doing interesting things in the online education world. And Andrew Goyens, who I had on recently with the online Texas base camp. So it's just really cool to see how people are adapting to the times and changing and making things work. And we'll see what sticks and what doesn't. I think that now and forever, there's not going to be the same experience as one-on-one with somebody. I think that's just a special thing. But I think in some ways, and as you heard in this conversation, there are ways that you can kind of go above and beyond that. Beyond. Sorry. And yeah, it's just super cool to see what people are doing. So thank you for listening. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Jamie. And if you're new to the podcast, welcome. If you've been around for a while and you're listening to these outros, then I assume you're a true fan or you've been kidnapped and you can't turn off your mobile device. So thank you for following along. From the bottom of my heart, I appreciate it. Hope to see you again in person. If not, hope to see you at the Base Summit coming up in a couple of weeks. And thank you to the team. Trevor Jones, Mitch Mooring, Krista Copper, Michael Cooper, Steve Hinchy. Trevor does not make beautiful basses. Maybe he does, and I don't know about it. Mitch Mooring makes beautiful basses in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and I just can't say enough good things about Mitch and everybody else that helps me out with these podcasts. They just wouldn't happen without this team. So if you're looking for a bass or work on your bass or just want to check out some beautiful award-winning basses, MitchMooring.com is where you should check out. And that's it. I'm your host, Jason Heath, and we will see you again soon for more life on the low end of the spectrum.